another fiery hearing in the Supreme Court today when it comes to the Kolkata RG rape and murder of a young doctor. The Supreme Court has asked protesting doctors in Bengal to return to work and set a deadline of 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening or face possible disciplinary action. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo story. Our focus continues to be on the aftermath and the investigation into the rape and murder of a young doctor in Kolkata's RG College. Today, there were heated exchanges in the Supreme Court. Kapil Sibal, representing the West Bengal government, blamed the protest for taking the lives of 23 people, even as Jawhar Sircar spoke to the Mojo story on why he has quit as Trinamool member of TMC MP because of his disappointment with how the government has handled the protests and the investigation. Now, many questions were raised in the Supreme Court about the integrity of the postmortem and the forensic investigation. The Solicitor General made an allegation that the condition of the victim's body and the findings of the forensic report did not add up, that these samples will now be sent to the All India Medical Institute. At one point, the Chief Justice seemed to lose his cool with a BJP leader and a lawyer. By the end of it, the Supreme Court's Chief Justice, the country's Chief Justice, had ordered the protesting doctors to go back to work by 5 p.m. on Tuesday evening or face possible disciplinary action. So it was a mixed bag of outcomes, even as global protests in solidarity with the victim continue from Melbourne to Manhattan. The images you're seeing on your screen are of the medical community globally speaking up for the victim and asking for justice for her. Now, given the Supreme Court's diktat, as it were, the protesting doctors must return to work, and also given Mamata Banerjee's revelation that 7 days ago the police chief had offered to resign, what happens next? Remember, one of the key demands of the protesting doctors has been the resignation and the removal of the police chief. That clearly is something that has not happened. It could have happened, but the West Bengal chief minister took a decision to the contrary, as she herself revealed today. Let's introduce our panel to understand what might happen next. Will the protesting doctors have to heed what the Chief Justice is saying? Where does the case go from here? If the postmortem's integrity has been questioned by several lawyers today, what happens next? Sanjoy Ghose is with us. Sanjoy Ghose is, of course, a senior advocate. Welcome to the program. Also joining us is Nilanjan Das, who's the leader of the Trinamool Congress. Welcome and namaskar, Nilanjan. Also joining us is Dr. Kunal Sarkar. He's a leading cardiac surgeon. He's been outspoken voice asking for justice for the victim. Welcome back, Dr. Sarkar. And also joining us is Dr. Tapas Pramanik. He has been somebody who's also been an outspoken voice. He was on duty on the night of the crime at the RG Medical College. Welcome, everybody. And we'll also be playing out clips of Jawhar Sircar, who spoke to me earlier on why he took the decision to resign. Let me, for once, since I've been so critical of the Trinamool Congress all these days, give the first word to Nilanjan. Let me give him the first word to understand how he sees what's happened in Supreme Court today. Nilanjan, looking at your social media feed very closely, you have been raising for quite a while that patients have been suffering because of these protests. You have spoken about potential casualties. Today, Mr. Sibal made that official. He took a number. He said 23 deaths have taken place. The doctors might turn around and say that they have no option, they have no other way to express their protests but what they've been doing. And theirs is a people-led movement. In fact, very clearly, the doctors have not affiliated to any political party. They've asked political leaders to leave their protests, whichsoever political party they may be from. Do you think it's fair to blame the doctors at this point for these casualties, A? And B, how do you see what's happened in the Supreme Court today, including critically the Chief Justice's instruction that the doctors must return to work?
Yeah, good evening, Barkha, and good evening to all the other panelists. So what the Honorable Chief Justice of India has said is what we were demanding all this while. Our National General Secretary, Mr. Abhishek Banerjee, had also said that the protest can go on along with the medical services. So that's what we were demanding all this while. So if the doctors, the junior doctors who were protesting, if they had allowed the medical system to run in the state, so we are virtually going through a medical emergency right now in the state of West Bengal, where we have witnessed 23 deaths. Can you imagine? For, nothing is, I don't want to belittle anything, by saying, please don't put me out of context. But for one one very, very unfortunate, horrific death of Dr. Tilottama, we have literally sacrificed, and we are not even talking about the 23 lives that have been lost. So it's a welcome decision of the Honorable Supreme Court, but I'm quite sure that Mamata Banerjee's government is still not going to take any action against the protesting doctors. It is my humble request to the doctors, to the community, to the medical fraternity, that they should return to work. They can do a staggered, system of running the protest along with giving medical services to the patients, at least to the emergency patients. Like, for
Okay.
example, there's one Mr. Vikram Bhattacharya, a 27-year-old guy from Konnagar. He suffered an accident and he was taken to RG and he bled all through and he expired. So we cannot, we cannot countenance such tragedies to go on. So I think they must heed to the appeal of the Honorable Chief Justice and return to work.
Okay, but before I open this up, Nilanjan, briefly, you do respect the essence of the protest, and you're saying the protest can continue alongside the services.
Absolutely, absolutely. Honorable Chief Minister has said that this protest, it is absolute. The demands are absolutely legitimate, but we do not agree with putting the entire medical system to standstill. So that cannot be allowed. What we are saying, that
Okay.
you demand justice, we are also demanding the justice. Chief Minister herself was on the streets. The Trinamool Congress is also demanding justice. We want justice. We want justice for Dr. Tilottama, but unfortunately, it has been taken over by some political elements who are, wanting to create a ransom in the state.
Okay, you have said that this has been taken over by political elements. One of your own colleagues, Jawhar Sircar, he actually addressed this. And I'm just going to, if I can request everybody to just take a look, because he actually spoke about the nature of the protests. And I want to play that out because one of the things that he addressed was, is this a political protest? Or is this not a political protest? And you are saying that this is a protest that has been taken over by political interests. I want to play this out and then we'll come to the rest of the panel. This is Jawhar Sircar on why he decided to resign as TMC MP. What for you has been the tipping point that made you decide that now enough is enough and you can't continue representing the Trinamool Congress in Parliament anymore? What was the last straw?
No, I had to use some sort of a shock method, even though it looks a bit sensational. There was no way I could otherwise get across to the leadership that this is not a political movement. I mix around with common people. I stay in a very middle class area. I know what's going on. I know, first we thought it was a class war between the Bhadraloks, the middle class, upper middle class, educated classes that don't like Mamata Banerjee. They don't like her. But then I found it's not a class war. It's actually more than that. Even those who are not part of the educated layers, everybody's participating. I've gone and seen it for myself. In some places, I covered my face with a handkerchief. That's all. Because I needed to find the pulse of the people, and I saw something that's amazing. At 15, 16, I went out in the streets as a student activist. I mean, everybody does these things, so I also did it. From then till today, I'm 72, I have not seen such a spontaneous display of public anger sustained over a long period of time. We have seen rage. Rage comes up, it goes away. That sort of a thing. It can be cooled down. But here, I've never seen such spontaneous display.
So, Nilanjan, I wanted to play that out because you made the point about political interest taking over, and I'll give you a chance to respond. Let me just get the others into the conversation. Dr. Kunal Sarkar, the Supreme Court. I know that you have previously said that you were disappointed that the Kolkata police had not been made to answer for many of the very technical, specific questions that the Chief Justice's bench always asks. Today, too, Many specific questions were raised about the postmortem, the forensic report. We now know that the CBI is sending the samples to All India Medical Institute and so on. But even while that integrity was questioned, Chief Justice Chandrachud has asked the doctors to go back to work. What happens now, Dr. Sarkar?
I think as we speak, there is a general body meeting on of all the medical colleges, the junior doctors together. Obviously, I'm not privy to what's happening in the meeting, but if we are to sort of think on predictable lines, then probably the outcome or the conclusion from that meeting will be that people will respect. People may not concur word for word, punctuation by punctuation, but I think the junior doctors will respect the it was more of a it seemed more of a heavy-fisted order than a request from the Chief Justice of India asking doctors to get report back to work at 5 p.m. But I think probably the resumption will be under protest. Now the question is why? Now, you see, if we put things in perspective, you see, there has been enough tragedy, there has been enough hardening of positions, there has been enough arm wrestling of all descriptions. But really, if we feel that, there was somewhere in the various exchanges in the Supreme Court today, but I didn't really have time to see it in minute detail, but one line caught my attention. Probably one of the justices made the observation that we know what is happening on the ground. So, if that was to be correct in letter and spirit, that they do know what's happening on the ground, then in my mind, yes, resumption of duties is not an option. It had to happen. It had to happen. But it would have been more kind of consoling for the very disturbed medical fraternity of the entire state if the Supreme Court, if the Chief Justice had directed to a mandatory consultative process. If the Chief Justice had directed that, look, in my mind, you should get back to work in 3 days' time, and prior to that, you bury your hatchets, you get
Yeah.
on to a consultation between the representative and the junior doctors and the health department. Try to have a discussion, which they have, and each time there is really, this has been the stiffest, this has been the most sternest of differences with the least amount of consultation so far. So far.
Okay. Okay. I think
So
Nilanjan
I
wants to respond to that, but I'll let you complete your
So
point.
I
Yes.
think, I think everybody admits resumption of duties, whether it is Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, whenever. Even the juniors understand that is not an option. It had to happen. Now, what has not happened, because I hate to use the word, because if we put a very superficial ointment over a very deep wound, to use that to use that idiom once again, a sellotape on a stab wound, then what is going to happen is, unless you see, all of us wants this turbulence to settle down,
Yeah.
and the deficiencies in the system. Why has it come to that? Because under the very nose of the health administration, there has been gross infiltration of the healthcare administration by nefarious elements, by ad hoc parallel administrations of various descriptions.
Can I ask you, Dr. Sarkar, before I go to the others, and I know Nilanjan has a brief interjection, are you disappointed with what happened in court today to the extent,
In one way,
not in asking the doctors to go back, but that instruction came with no other relief to their demands?
look, I really think, Barkha, if you really want, we are not the classical trade unionists. Okay.
Right.
So you could have we own up to the, I think every junior doctor owns up to the difficulties, owns up to the problems that are created when the junior doctors across the state they go on a strike. We admit to it. Though we would contest some of the cases in specific that my friend from TMC has mentioned, but this is neither the time nor the forum to do that. But all I'm
Okay.
saying is that look, if there is a entire, if there is a repository of unaddressed issues, if there is a whole lot of grievances in the minds of the youngsters, and they
Yeah.
are, and without any kind of a mature consultative process, they are
Yeah.
thrust into work. I'll just give you one small example, one small before I end. I
Yeah.
wish I wish this process works out. I wish our hardening of stance and tempers cool down. We wish that the health service and everything returns to normal. But God forbid, if some trouble breaks out, say in the Arjikor campus of any description, one
Yeah.
more flash in the pan, I'll just tell you one thing. I was there in the Arjikar vicinity just 24 hours back, and I just asked somebody, the CISF is monitoring the area. They are now.
Mm-hmm.
Who does the CISF report to? Who takes care? How do you
Yeah.
upscale what is happening? So there are
Yeah.
lots of unaddressed issues. But
Yes.
more, but more importantly, I would have thought it would have been more empathetic on both sides if the Supreme Court had directed and started a very lacking, we were lacking in a consultative process, hardening of stances on two sides. There could have been a mandatory meeting between the two fronts, whatever, even if you articulate your issues, you get it off
Yeah.
your chest.
I get the gist of what you're saying, and I do want to go to Dr. Tapas and Sanjoy. So, Nilanjan, please keep your interjection to one sentence for now because the other two guests haven't spoken. I think the important point being raised is that suppose the Supreme Court had said, all right, doctors get back to work, but Kolkata Police Commissioner, please resign. And I'm going to play out what Mamta Banerjee said on that. It is acceding to something that the doctors have been asking for. You say you respect the essence of their protest. What has the Bengal government granted the protesting doctors? What have you granted in terms of their demands, Nilanjan?
That
Nilanjan, yeah,
everything other than that demand for the resignation of the CP of Kolkata, and from what I gather from the Chief Minister's press conference today, the CP had offered to resign to the Honorable Chief Minister uh,
yeah,
on more than one occasions. Now, I just want to make
yes,
3 points, 3 quick lines. One is the
okay,
Chief Minister today has said that she is open to discussing with a team of junior doctors. They can come to her office and discuss whatever issues that they have. Secondly, they had marched to the the health office, the Swastha Bhavan that we call in Bengali. So they had marched to that place. They had placed all their demands out there. So most of their demands have been met, other than this resignation of the the
okay,
CP. And
okay,
even from day one, when the resident doctors had put out certain demands, like they wanted the capital punishment, they also wanted construction of restroom for women, which the at that time the hospital administration did start. And this cabal, this entire anti Mamta brigade who wants the resignation of the chief minister, they wanted to blow it out of proportion, as if they are trying to destroy all the evidences. So there has been a very concrete fake news brigade, and it has been mainstream to some extent. Very sorry to say, Barkha, but even the mainstream media did publish a number of fake news. You would know
okay,
that.
okay. Well, I mean, as you know, you and or your colleague from Trinamool and I have quarreled on this, and I have
Yes.
a whole bunch of things to say about it, and we can have a separate conversation
Yeah.
on that for this moment to not be
You would
hijacked by
agree
what
that
you and I.
there has been a disinformation campaign.
What I would say, what I would say for myself, I'm not going to speak on behalf of all media. What I would say for myself is that there was almost no communication from the West Bengal government in the few days that followed
That's not
the
correct.
crime. Very
I
little.
think
That's
you
what
have a
I
problem
feel. That's what.
understanding Bengali. I think a number of statements were given out by Mr.
Okay.
Alapan Bandyopadhyay.
Okay.
Most of them
Okay.
were in Bengali, and you
Okay.
couldn't gather
Okay.
most of it.
Okay. Okay, Nilanjan, let's do this because otherwise this conversation will descend into a tutu meme between you and me. I think where I stand on the journalism we've done is very much in the public domain, and what you feel about it is also very much in the public domain. Let's have a separate conversation on the media coverage, and I'm up for it, totally
Not
up for it.
much
I
corrigendum
want
was put out. Not much corrigendum was put out.
I do not believe that there needed to be any corrigendum from the reporting I have done, and I'm saying that on record. I'm happy to debate that with you on another program if we can allow these two other guests of ours to come in on this point. I have said that I stand by the reporting I've done, and I'm saying it again, and I'm happy because you're civil. And as long as someone is civil, I'm very happy to debate it with you separately on a separate program, and we'll do it. We'll definitely do it. Let's come back to the focus of what we're saying here. The focus here is, Sanjoy, that while the Trinamool Congress calls a number of reports fake news, for example, the reference to the renovation, and they say the doctors had asked for it, there are many other pieces of evidence that have been placed before the court. As the bench said today, they will now be the subject of the CBI investigation, right? The CBI will have to establish, is Nilanjan right in saying this was fake news, or were the doctors who alleged the cover-up and reported by media like me right? What did you make of the Supreme Court's hearing today? What was the big takeaway for you, Sanjoy?
Well, Barkha, for me, the big takeaway was to read the Riot Act to the doctors, and I thought it was time that it is done. There are certain professions, like the legal profession, the Supreme Court in several cases, and I paint the doctors with the same brush with which we paint ourselves. The Supreme Court has come down hammer on tongs on lawyers going on strike by saying that certain professions, and we are the second oldest and the third oldest profession, doctors and lawyers, and we cannot afford to be on strike. And therefore, for me, I don't think you need a hand holding or comforting and say, please come and talk. All parties are mature. I am mercifully out of Bengal. I'm sitting in Delhi. And I can say from a position of neutrality that the egos on all sides have to come down. From the political side, the government side, the doctor's side, please bring down your egos. Because at the end of the day, if you are, all of you, and I'm saying all of you, want to do something positive to commemorate the sacrifice of that horrific victim again sounds bad, but whatever, that lady doctor, if you want
she
to...
is a victim. She is a victim. She's not a survivor. She is a victim.
She is a victim.
Yes.
And if you want to ensure that this never again happens to anyone, for God's sake, all of you come down from your egos, go and talk. You don't need a Supreme Court Chief Justice to tell you go and talk. So that is a big takeaway for me from this.
Sanjoy, can I argue this briefly from the doctor's perspective? I'm sure Tapas and Kunal will speak for themselves. But it occurs to me, having covered many incidents of sexual violence across the country, that if doctors in this case did not have the national mobilizing capacity, I'm not only talking about West Bengal doctors, I'm talking about doctors across India, perhaps this would never have become the national issue that it did. Perhaps the Supreme Court would not have even picked it up suo motu. So for one moment, consider that without doctors protesting everywhere, would all of us have been following this case as closely as we have?
Well, you have used politically correct terms. I would say the doctors holding hostage ability, yes. And that having been said, yes. Now, I have been a Delhi government standing counsel for years, and I know that the demand of doctors in Delhi has been security, because in Delhi we have pitai. I'm sure that happens in West Bengal also. The patients come and beat up doctors when there is a death. So our doctors are vulnerable. They need to be protected. The conditions of government hospitals, I know that because I had to defend the government hospitals of Delhi. They are woeful. So I understand from where the doctors are coming, and I understand it's very easy for us to say go back to work and then go back to our lives and then have them risk another kind of rape or whatever. But that having been said, let's be very clear. Now, either you have faith in a system or you don't. There were WhatsApp circulating in Bengal saying, oh, tomorrow is a Supreme Court case and let us all switch off lights and have cell phone lights and all that, whatever. And of course, the Chief Justice was not well, so that hearing didn't happen. But my point is this, that when you are putting your faith in a Supreme Court hearing or the Supreme Court process, the Supreme Court has expressed its solidarity with you. The Supreme Court has set up a national task force with doctors for you. That having been done, then you cannot say, I will have my cake and eat it too. That yes, the Supreme Court will be adjudicating, and I will keep on protesting and keep on holding the patients to random. And let's be very clear. And these doctors should understand this, that it is not the rich people who are going to suffer. It is not Mamta Banerjee and her ministers who are going to suffer. It is those very poor people who have no other option but to come to your government hospitals who are going to suffer. So for God's sake, stop this blackmailing.
Okay, you think that the doctors are blackmailing. Let's hear from the doctors who might turn around and remind you, Sanjoy, that on the eve of India's Independence Day, there were vandals in the thousands who came in and not just beat up, not just sought to destroy property, but according to testimonies we have on camera from nursing staff that night, were threatened with rape in the same way as was done, quote unquote, I'm quoting nursing staff that we have on camera here, as was done to the victim at the Arjikor Medical College. These are some of the images. The reason I'm bringing this up right now, Sanjoy, and I'll bring in Dr. Tapas, is that the doctors might well ask, all right, you asked us to go back to work, but who is taking responsibility and accountability for what happened on the night of 14th August? Who is taking responsibility and accountability for the rape and murder? Yes, very briefly, because Tapas has
very briefly, just a minute response to what you said. I absolutely agree with the doctors. They were vulnerable and they were put out over there to be lynched. I have my sympathy for them. I have my respect for them. But a lot of water has flowed since then. Okay, now you have the central forces guarding the hospital. Number one, you have the CBI, which is certainly not under the control of Mamta and her ministers, who are in charge of the investigation, not only of the investigation of the murder. As you know, it has been broad-based. Now, everything, including all the affairs of Arjikor, are being investigated. And of course, the CBI is no manna from heaven. We know how the CBI works, how impartial the CBI is. Already the CBI has started all those leaks as to what that Sanjoy Mandal or whatever has said in his narco test is now being leaked to media. So whatever it is, but it is at least is not under the control of the state government. So either you have faith in the system now that you have central protection of three forces, three companies, now that the investigation is taken over from a complicit state government's police who you want removed, now it is very different from what circumstance you were putting to me. But
I hear you that you're now saying that it's not with the police. It's not with the police. So why are you raising your questions to the police? However, some of my questions still remain. You are asking people to have faith in a system where many people believe that there was a Nilanjan will say this is fake news, this is disinformation. The fact is this is now officially in the Supreme Court. And the bench said the CBI will have to investigate. Is this fake news or did it happen, right? Many people believe Dr. Sarkar, Dr. Pramanik are among those who have said so on this platform on record, that SOPs were not followed. Tapas Pramanik said the death declaration was 3 hours late, right? Today in the Supreme Court, many questions were raised about what time the unnatural death was registered, what time the GD entry was, why was the postmortem conducted after 6 p.m. I'm not making these up. This is a lawyer speaking in Supreme Court and many doctors saying this on record. I want to play out that clip on the question raised about the postmortem and then Tapas can respond. Take a look.
Noting of the civil surgeon on the postmortem report that the Deputy Commissioner of Police or the Commissioner of Police has certified it, then it has to go to the superintendent. Superintendent certifies it and then sends it to the postmortem doctors. These three postmortem doctors, one of whom is a professor of forensics, knows this, but still, what is the reason? The reason was to get rid of the body. What Justice Partiwala was continuously asking, the GD entry number 576. I will ask them to show Form 27. And I'll answer Justice Partiwala's questions in 1 minute. Form 27, please. Form 27 is the first information report. In the first information report, there are various columns. Column 3, C2 gives the GD entry number. Column C? C2 gives the GD entry number by which the FIR was started. The FIR was started by GD entry number 577. The UD case was 576, as pointed out by Justice Partiwala. It was registered at 11:40 in the night, 45 in the night. But in the history,
that was the last time also.
In the history, in my last 27 years in my career, I have never come across a case where seizure takes place prior to the lodging of the FIR.
The FIR has been registered at 23:30 hours.
Yes. Now, there was.
All right. So again, I know the Trinamool Congress says that, this a lot of things being alleged about cover-ups are fake news. However, this is now on record as an allegation in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court responded by saying that they will not take a position on it right now because it has to be the subject of the CBI investigation. Dr. Tapas Pramanik, how do you respond to what you've seen? You're a young doctor. You were on duty that night of the crime in RG College. You have spoken to me extensively about SOPs that you say were not followed. The Chief Justice has said junior doctors must return to work. As a young doctor who has spoken out, what do you say today?
So I will respect the Supreme Court orders, but at the same time, I'm also disappointed. But I would like to say one thing. I beg to differ with the opinion of Mr. Nilanjan with Mr. Vikram Bhattacharya, 28 years that a fake news was spreading outside that he was unattended. Unattended. Yeah, can you hear? He was unattended, but it is totally wrong. Actually, he came to the general emergency at around 9 a.m. After that, the emergency medical officer, Dr. Shubir Rai, was attended the patient. After that, the dedicated orthopedics and surgery team attended him and initial resuscitation done. After that, due to suspected brain injury, the CT scan advised CT scan. After that, one hypovolemic shock has been happened and the gasping state. He was at gasping state and death was declared by the time. And the patient was happy with the Dr. Shubir Rai before initiation of death certificate and postmortem. But a rumor is going on outside that the patient was unattended. How it is possible? There are a lot of patients coming to the emergency. Every patient is not advised with the CT scan. That means the patient has been attended by the doctors. After that, the CT scan has been advised. So this opinion or this news is totally fake.
Okay,
And
I will let Nilanjan respond to that because really we don't know. We are not medical people. What attention a patient should get, I am not in a position to say. I see Dr. Sarkar also raising his hand. Just 1 minute, everybody. Dr. Tapas, on the larger picture, you said you will respect what the Supreme Court has said, but you are disappointed. Can you explain what you're disappointed by?
Actually, I don't know. I am disappointed because of the vandalism occurred in 14th August. After that, we don't know who are the responsible for these things, and it will not be happen in future. I don't know. So I'm not sure how can I join. How can the junior doctors attend in the hospital, and after that, no incident will be happened in future. That's why we are disappointed totally.
Okay, Dr. Sarkar, you wanting to add to that? Nilanjan, just let me take one comment from Dr. Sarkar. I'll come to you after that. Dr. Sarkar.
I think, I really appreciate some of the content of what Mr. Ghose said from Delhi. You see, Mr. Ghose, you have probably knowingly or unknowingly mixed up egos for issues. It was not a question of egos, Mr. Ghose. It was a question of issues. Yes, the kind of, the septicemia occurred in front of our eyes when this young girl lost her life. But for ad nauseum and repeatedly, various doctors, bodies, associations, including the Indian Medical Association, has been trying to bring to the attention of the Health Administration of West Bengal that what were the mounting issues that were happening month after month and year after year. So much so, our one of the main criminal luminaries right now, allegedly Sandeep Ghosh. If you just look back, his issues were being discussed for a good part of the last 2 years, and nobody was paying any attention to this. And it is an amalgamation of all these problems, which today does not give a doctor working in the hospitals, a doctor on duty, a doctor whatever, the confidence in the system, when we talk about faith in the system, we are not talking about any medieval religious process. We are talking about our faith in the system, which is able to take cognizance of the problems and take corrective actions thereon. So it will be a little bit naive for us to presume that, it was like an instant hardening of cement, that because, yes, let nobody ever see an incident like this ever in their lives. But
Yeah.
doctors, medical associations, Indian medical associations have been banging their heads on the wall for a good part of last, a year and a half to 2 years, and
Yeah.
things were really not happening. Why were they not happening? Because perhaps you do not know the intricate details sitting in Delhi, because repeatedly people were made to believe that a certain cartel, a certain cabal, a certain few people who are very close to the center of power were having, unnecessary influences in the healthcare system,
Yeah.
including the medical council and bodies like that. You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right in saying that attitudes were hardened. But the question is, it is the people in administration. We needed the intervention at the senior most level to come and say that, okay, we may have looked sideways for a good period of time, but time has now come, probably a bit too late. The
Yeah.
sacrifice of this life was not necessary, that probably it's a bit too late. Let us at last call spade a spade, try to do a rationalizing and a cleanup act. And that is exactly what we meant. That if
I
we,
think, yeah, sorry I'm interrupting you, Dr. Sarkar, but I think you make a very important point that I want to take to both Nilanjan and Sanjoy Ghosh, that it is not as if questions were not raised earlier, Nilanjan, about Mr. Sandeep Ghosh. When you were on my program last time, if you remember, I had asked you why was he not removed immediately? Why was he transferred to Calcutta National Medical College? Right? Um, there are students on camera now. If you say that they are making up things, I don't know, but they're on camera to us saying that they were harassed by him, they were scared by him. Two students spoke about thinking, contemplating suicide. One showed us his slashed wrist. He was a terrifying figure by all accounts. And the perception is that he was protected by the West Bengal government. And again, Nilanjan, with respect, I am not saying this. The Calcutta High Court asked, why is this man so powerful? Why has a government lawyer been sent to defend him? This is not Barkha. This is the Calcutta High Court. I want you to respond to Dr. Sarkar's point, to Tapas's point, and then I'll come to Sanjoy also. These are not questions, these are not unfair questions. These are very fair questions, and the Trinamool Congress has said many things, but it's never explained why it wanted to protect this man called Sandeep Ghosh.
The question of protection doesn't arise. First, you have to understand these are two different issues. I'm glad that Dr. Sarkar brought this up. He said that there are many issues, including the perceived corruption or this high-handedness of this ex-principal. But these are two different issues. We are now talking about bringing justice for Dr. Tilottama, and we don't see much progress towards that investigation. The perceived corruption in Arjikot, that's a separate issue, and for which people like
what
Dr.
if the two things are connected, sir? Nilanjan, what if the two?
This is where politics comes into play. These are political elements. You see, by meaning political, I don't always mean that someone is from CPM or someone is from BJP. You can just be a passionate Mamata hater. We have pathological hatred towards Mamata in Bengal. So these are some of the people who try to connect these two issues. Now let me come to some of the points that were raised. The junior doctor here, he said that I made a fake news about Vikram's death, but whatever I said is from the account that has been shared by his mother. So in Tilottama's case, we are believing whatever her parents are saying. But in case of Vikram, we won't believe his mother. What kind of justice is this supposed to be? Now, about CISF. Now, the entire premises of RG is under CISF protection. Now, do you know that when the CISF in charge, then we have some of the TMCP affiliated. TMCP is the students' body of the Trinamool Congress. The TMCP affiliated medical students whose hostel rooms have been broken down. So where is justice? The state police is unable to do anything because the entire premises now comes under CISF protection. Who is going to seek justice for that?
Can I ask you something? You said to connect the allegations against Sandeep Ghosh to this case is a political response, not political party politics, but a kind of ideological anti-Mamta response. I'm just asking as a layperson. I'm just anti-establishment. I'm asking as a layperson, and then I'll get Sanjoy and Tapas. They want you to come in very briefly. He's the principal. The rape and murder happens in a college where he's the principal. In some ways, the moral responsibility, like if somebody in my team messes up, I may say that it's their incompetence, but the buck will stop with me. That's the nature of leadership. I believe that he should have resigned immediately and he should not have been given another posting. And the moment that happened, it created a perception. And the Calcutta High Court asked, why has a government lawyer been sent to defend him? You have not answered that, Nilanjan. Can we unmute Nilanjan? I can't hear Nilanjan.
Just
I can't hear you.
Whatever
Now I can.
We should leave aside whatever Calcutta High Court has said. Now the case is with the Supreme Court, and Supreme we know. I won't make much of comments about the credibility of Calcutta.
Okay, that's also something to process there. But
no, because we have sitting judges. We have sitting judges from Calcutta High Court who are now sitting with the BJP. They are member of Parliament of the BJP.
Okay.
So I comment about their credibility.
All right, Sanjoy, you were wanting to respond to Dr. Sarkar, and then Dr. Tapas will want to respond to Nilanjan.
Just one piece of information for your viewers. 4 days before Modi was sworn in, this is the law which was published by the central government. Okay, the Whistleblowers Act of 2014. Your viewers will be surprised to know that till date this law has not been notified. Now, this is where, if the central government had notified the Whistleblowers Act, then those lawyers of RG Corp would have had a way of ventilating their alleged grievances against this man. I mean, just as on a legal issue, that there are formed over there. Now, coming to what Dr. Sarkar said, Dr. Sarkar is very respected, and I'm a great fan of what he is doing in the last 2-3 weeks. He should not misunderstand what I have said. Now, what I have said with regard to all the stakeholders. I have not targeted the doctors. I have said equally, the ego should not be there with the politicians and the police. Now, having said that, let's be very clear. We are not babes in the woods. Dr. Sarkar, with his great experience, also knows the malaise of Bengal, the alleged corruption which has infiltrated in all aspects of public life and government life, as is being talked about, cannot be solved in one day. And in any case, it cannot be solved without talking. So therefore, when the Chief Minister has held out an olive branch and said, I'm willing to talk all issues. Now, if you say now the Chief Minister has to resign, that is like, then there'll be no talk. Okay. So if you are going to have so much of an issue to even sit and talk, then I shudder to think how you're going to resolve the basic issues.
I think Dr. Sarkar has a brief interjection to you, and then I'll let you complete your point. Dr. Sarkar, yes?
Sandeep, I concur with most of the things you've said, but to clear a misconception, there was no refusal by the Joint Doctors Platform or whoever to discuss anything with the Chief Minister. There was an abortive meeting with the Principal Health Secretary where 6 or 7 associations gave their memorandums to them and requested the Principal Health Secretary that we would definitely want, as the temperature went on increasing and attaining the boiling point, that we would request a meeting and an audience with the Chief Minister. Somehow that did not come to pass. But I just want to make a factual correction. To the best of my knowledge, till date, there has been no refusal from any doctors' organizations to sit down and discuss the meeting with the chief minister. If you throw the question back at me and ask me that I am baffled by this position as well, that why has it not happened? Honestly, Sandeep and everybody, I
Sanjoy,
cannot give you a straightforward answer. Why has it not happened so far?
Okay, I'll let you complete your point. Can we unmute, please, Sanjoy? Can we unmute Sanjoy?
Again, I was talking in the context of not having any conditions preset for the talks. So you cannot have agitation and talks at the same time. Okay. In the context
Why
when the
not?
Supreme
Why not?
No,
Without
no.
this agitation,
Sandeep, let me
what would be the leverage of anybody on the streets?
let me make a point. Let me make a
Yeah.
point. Let me make a
Yes.
point. You see, even as I told you, doctors, we are not the cleverest people on earth. Not by and we are on the same professional bandwidth as everybody is. But time and again, in government institutions or sometimes in private, we do have these troubles surfacing. Few years back, when a junior doctor got manhandled in another medical college, hell broke loose. There was action like this for a few years, and everybody, the people concerned had an opportunity to sit with the chief minister. She called all the doctors. She convened a big meeting. It was not just a meeting. That meeting was live streamed on television. And from thereafter, the temperature started cooling down. And okay, these things happen, Sandeep. We are aware of it. Even we are
Okay.
in the real world. But the
Okay.
question is that some of these embalming, some of these processes should have happened by this time. Even I
I
am
think that's
baffled as
fair.
you are why it
I
has
think
not.
that's fair. I think that's fair. And Sanjoy, while I
as
let you complete your point, may I add a question of my own? You have criticized the doctors, the prolonged protest, as it were. What is your opinion of how TMC has handled everything?
let me answer that. Let me first
Yeah,
deal with what Dr. Sarkar is saying. Since Dr. Sarkar is not aware of my name, I won't blame him that he doesn't know.
Sanjoy, Sanjoy,
That's okay. That's
Sanjoy.
okay.
Yes.
But I'm saying in the
Sanjoy, let me
context
go.
that he will not know what I have done. For 30 years, I have been a lawyer who has done a lot of industrial and labor cases. In fact, I was the lawyer of the striking pilots when we brought Air India to a grinding halt, Indian Airlines to a grinding halt. Now, if you doctors want to be like industrial workers and do a strike, then let me tell you about the Industrial Disputes Act. The Industrial Disputes Act says the moment a notice of strike is given, first a public utility has to give a notice of strike. And moment the notice of strike is given, if the conciliation process starts, both parties have to withhold their hand. That is the law. Now, if you want to be treated as a striking industrial worker, then that is the industrial law which will apply to you. So once you have gone to court, the court is sympathetic, the court has set up a committee. Once there is an investigation on, that is it. Now coming to how the TMC has handled it, I am not a politician. I am here as a lawyer. It is not for me to comment on what the TMC has done and not done. Evidently, the TMC has made a solid big mess. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here where we are. But let's also be very clear. And I'm happy that this conversation today has been a very sanitized conversation, because the doctors and the civil society of Calcutta, and let me tell you, a lot of civil society who have nothing to do with politics are agitated and on the streets, and I respect them. And the civil society has kept out those politicians who ensured that the body of the victim was burnt with petrol and kerosene in Hathras, have the audacity to come and say, oh, why did you have a hurried cremation with the parents involved? So therefore, the moment you ask me how the TMC has handled this, we get into a political arena. And I think the sad situation, Barkha is actually thinking now time has come for us to have, like in America, term limits for prime ministers and chief ministers. So, the problem is, unfortunately, and I'll risk myself in saying this, unfortunately, the sad thing about the people of our country is that we have a Hobson's choice. If you think you will replace Mamta and you'll get another group in, it'll be the devil and the deep blue sea, and that's the sad reality. Citizens of India.
Okay. I just want to say, I know Nilanjan has his hand up, but Tapas, then we have to start taking concluding remarks after that. But I reported on Hathras. I reported on Bilkis Banu. I've reported on RG Core, and I think that we must ask questions of all political parties with the same fierceness and with the same lack of fear, and risk, many politicians telling us that, oh, you are biased, you are biased. This we hear every day as journalists. That is our job. Everybody will call us biased when they don't like what we're doing. Let's come back to Tapas. And I'm so sorry, but we have to start taking concluding remarks now. Dr. Tapas, what happens now, sir? What happens now? You and Nilanjan have disagreed over the handling of that one patient, but the larger picture, if you do go back to work, what happens? How do you see the next few weeks panning out?
Actually, West Bengal Junior Doctors Fund are doing their PAN-GB meeting, and they will take the decision whether they will join or not. Actually, I don't know what they are taking any decision or not. And I'd like to say one thing, and I beg to differ with Mr. Nilanjan Das, and he's saying the death of Dr. Tilottama and death of Bikram Bhattacharya most like same. But I would like to say that this is totally different thing. This is totally different thing. And he is also saying that the corruption is the one thing and the this death is other thing. But no, I beg to differ this opinion also. Corruption and this death is interrelated, because the corruption ultimately leads to this death, because Dr. Sandeep Ghosh was enjoying a absolute power for last 3 years. A lot of complaint against him by the Akhtar Ali sir, deputy superintendent of the deputy superintendent by the time of Arjikar Medical College and Hospital. After that, no action has been taken against him, and after that, he is taking absolute power, and this death has come.
I think you make the important point that the corruption and the rape and murder
Corruption
of the
and
young
death
doctor
are interrelated.
Okay, Nilanjan.
Interrelated.
I think I got your point. Nilanjan, I think that's an important point, because the CBI's arrest of Sandeep Ghosh has also been in a financial case.
Explain me
right?
how are they interrelated, and how the corruption led to her rape and murder.
Tapas, no, not to the crime, but maybe to the alleged cover-up. Tapas, do you want to react? Tapas, do you want to answer?
Actually, this type of environment in the Arjikar Medical College, this was totally fearful environment created by the ex-principal Sandeep Ghosh. After that, most of the doctors,
what has that got to do with the rape and murder? Please explain.
Okay, can I try and ask some of the questions?
If the environment is fearful, the crime will be happened.
How? I mean, this is completely, this is not getting into my head. Maybe I take it as a limitation of my rational faculty, but people are not buying this argument.
Okay. Are you saying? Okay, I don't know about people, but in the Supreme Court, in the clip we played out for you, there were questions raised about the SOPs followed vis-a-vis the postmortem, the declaration of death, etc.
That is something that is a part of the investigation. I'm not getting into
One
that.
One minute. You asked a question. I'm trying to.
The body was burnt with kerosene. So let's not get into this. Let's not get into
You asked a question. Nilanjan, let me speak and then you can speak. You asked a question. I am trying to respond to that question, that many of the protesting doctors believe or want to know. What is the connection between this man, Sanjoy Roy, arrested for the rape, and Sandeep Ghosh? Why were certain SOPs not followed? Why did the college tell the family that their daughter had died by suicide in call number 3? Right? There are questions like this. The CBI will investigate them, but to say that these are the CBI will have the last word. We have agreed. We have to trust now the process of the Supreme Court.
That is what I'm trying to say.
We have all agreed on that. Okay.
These are some of the statements from the government council or the the solicitor general. So these are not statements from the Supreme Court. These are not observations or rulings of the Supreme Court. So let's get this straight. There are arguments made against it, and they have been countered to by Mr. Kapil Sibal. So that is a different story. Now, here you said that these two are interlinked. So this is where politics comes into play, and there is a cabal who is anti-establishment and who are trying to this narrative that there is an anti-incumbency against Mamta Banerjee.
What will be the olive branch? Let's look ahead.
However, please let me finish, Barkha. I also need to respond to my very senior colleague, what Mr. Jawhar Sircar has said. I also need to respond to that. But since he said that there should be term limits for the chief minister, let me assure you, Kolkata is not just Bengal. A huge section of Bengal now feel frustrated, suffocated by what is happening in Kolkata right now. Kolkata, even the people, general people, I commute on, the local bus and train. So I can sense the feeling of the people. People are disgusted right now with what is happening.
Okay.
Every day,
Okay.
the BJP,
Okay.
the
Now,
CPM,
what about
they
your
are
own
carrying
colleague?
out.
What about
No,
your
no,
own colleague, Nilanjan? You
yeah,
said you wanted to
yes,
respond to
yes.
that. Yeah.
He also, yes, my very, very senior colleague, Shri Jawhar Sircar, ex-IAS, he said
Yes.
that he also visited some of the places where agitations were taking place. You have to understand, all these agitations, they are planned. However, they don't seek any permission from the administration, but these are all planned by political interests. So since Mr. Jawhar Sircar went to such places, of course you will have people who are anti-establishment, who are anti-TMC, and they are trying to sell this narrative that everything is finished, as if
So are you
West Bengal is.
are you saying all the protests on the streets of Kolkata for so many weeks are all political? All of
Yes,
them?
yes, of course,
Nobody has
that
come
I'm not
out
saying.
because they care
No, no,
about
no.
the woman.
Of course they did. Many TMC people, let me tell you, went on the 14th night, that Reclaim the Night program. Many TMC people went out. What
Okay.
about the the Navanno Abhiyan, or the Dofa Ek Dabi Ek Mamatar Padottag? These are kind of slogans that are being raised, that we want the resignation
Okay.
of the chief minister. These are all BJP programs, BJP funded.
So you
CPM is giving the
disagree?
intellectual
You
faculty to that.
you
Yeah, and
you
they are
disagree?
waging this
Do you
program.
disagree?
Absolutely.
Do you disagree with Jawhar Sircar?
I do disagree to him on this, that
Okay.
there is a growing sentiment against the government. So these are the people. He went to some of the places, maybe, which are carrying out
Okay.
the agitation. So probably that is the sense that he has picked
Okay.
up. I don't.
Okay. With
I absolutely respect his decision of resigning from the Rajya Sabha. At
okay.
least he has not. He has not, like another of his colleague, another Rajya Sabha member. He has not maligned the party on social media. You can
Okay.
understand which Rajya Sabha member I'm talking about.
Okay. I do indeed. I must now give the closing comment to Dr. Kunal Sarkar. Where do we go from here? Is there a possibility to go from here to a place where medical sort of services can resume, but there is hope that justice will be served? That is the place we need to go to, Dr. Sarkar.
Uh, Barkha, in the midst of all this angst and outrage, you see, I think we must have an acceptance of reality by the people that yes, the process of investigation and justice is not going to be like instant coffee. It is going to take its own time. And people will have to brace back and give the process its due time that it takes. We just cannot want instant outcomes like a television serial that in the fifth episode or sixth episode it is going to conclude. It is not going to follow your or my timeline. Doctors will get back to work. Doctors had to get back to work. And probably for the foreseeable future, doctors will get back to work with protests. And our request to the very experienced governance of West Bengal, who does not lack the numerical authority, the dominance in the assembly, is to make a genuine and honest effort to rationalize and clean up this all the misdeeds and the infiltrations of our healthcare administration, because this at the end of it is what the medical community at large is asking for. And I'm
Okay.
this is not to pick up a political brownie point, but just to tell Nilanjan that you see, when IMA has been coming out with repeated dossiers that enumerate what has been happening, remember that a great majority of the IMA people are actually people of your TMC medical or administration.
Who is
So
the
people
secretary of
are
IMM?
People are crossing
Sorry.
party lines and
I think he has a brief interjection, and then I do have to close with Dr. Sarkar. Nilanjan, what is your brief interjection?
Who is the secretary of IMA West Bengal? Dr. Sarkar.
Sorry?
Who is the secretary of IMA West Bengal?
Look, I have not memorized any organograms and neither do I have to. But
No,
these...
no, that gives you the answer. That gives you the answer that it is Dr. Shantanu Sen. It is Dr. Shantanu Sen. He has been put out of post from the party. He is deputy from the CMC.
Okay, Dr. Shantanu Sen.
He has been sacked from all positions in the party.
I am appreciating that. People are crossing the party line and saying this. This is to be respected. That's what I'm saying, Nilanjan.
Okay, let's before we get lost in the weeds of very intricate Bengal politics, I think we must leave it here with a hope for justice. That is, I think, something we can agree on. There is a young woman who was raped and killed, and it has been a month. I think the people, her family, and people at large deserve more information on what we know so far. And I hope the Supreme Court's live stream of proceedings helps us to get to know more. We leave it there. I will only say thank you that everybody was polite. I think that's very important. We disagreed, but we disagreed with civility. And long may we be able to disagree in that manner so that our conversations become more honest. Thank you, Dr. Sarkar, Sanjoy, Ghose, Dr. Tapas, and to Nilanjan. Thank you very much. And to our audience, thank you for watching. See you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Motu Story and support independent, robust journalism.